Hi everyone. Spring gardens aren't built in spring. They're built right now. If you do these simple things in December, you'll be weeks ahead come spring. And who doesn't want to be able to be planting early in the springtime? And trust me, these are the strategies I use that help my spring garden be successful. Tip number one is to map out your early spring warm zones. And you can do this even now in the winter. So look outside in your garden and see where the sun hits first. Now in the spring, the sun will be higher in the sky, but by observing and mapping out your warm zones now, these will be the first places where the soil will warm up and where you can plant first in the spring. So in the wintertime, my warm zone is right here. It's early in the morning, the sun is hitting. These are the areas that are nice and warm right now and where the soil will warm first, especially this raised bed here. So if you're in a southern garden, you can definitely plant in your spring warm zone or actually your winter warm zone right now, cool weather vegetables. If you're in a mid-warm zone, in other words, your last frost date hits about March or April, you can plant your early spring veggies here first, like your radishes and your peas, and you can just tuck them in around your trellises. And for your gardeners in the far north who are still under snow and cold, your last frost date might not hit until April or May. This is where the snow and the frost are going to melt first. And as soon as you can work that soil, you can actually get to planting some peas. I've got little arugula seedlings coming up here. You can get those greens planted very first, even before your last frost date is passed. And these early warm zones or these winter warm zones for southern climates are also a great place for your container plants because you want them in the most sun possible so they're the most productive possible. So it's a great spot here for my igloo cauliflower and my Cisco broccoli and even some cool weather herbs which I have planted around, which are cilantro. So put your winter vegetables for southern gardeners in the sunniest spot possible in your garden. Now as we approach the spring, it's also a great spot where you can actually start some seeds outdoors if it's warm enough in your climate. So here I've got some greens and another round of cool weather vegetables started. I can grow them right outside here and they can pop up and I don't have to even worry about grow lights. And then I can just bring them inside when the nights get below freezing. This really works because by keeping an eye on the sunlight patterns now in December, I can know exactly where I want to plant in the spring. And that way, when you're rushing to get everything planted, you're not having to figure out where to place things. So it's a great strategy to get a little bit ahead of the game in springtime. Tip number two is once I've identified where the sun hits first in my garden, what I like to do is kind of warm up a little mini spring growing zone. Because spring doesn't start when your last frost date hits. It starts when your soil is warm enough to plant. That's super important. So especially in you mid and northern zones, you're going to have very cold soil after your frost date. But what you can do to get a few weeks ahead is just use a couple of plastic storage bins, or you can use a tarp and put it over the areas where you want to start planting first. So this is really helpful for me in the spring because even though I live in Southern California, our soil still does get cold over the winter time. And so by warming up a little area of soil, I can plant my tomatoes and peppers and eggplant that much earlier. In you mid and northern climates, this will give you a jump ahead where you can actually start planting your early spring vegetables like your peas, your radishes, and your greens. So you want to do this about 2 weeks before your last frost date, 2 weeks before you want to plant your vegetables. This will solarize your soil, and then when you have a nice warm sunny day, what I like to do is kind of vent this area or vent the storage tub with the brick. That way it doesn't get overheated underneath and kill all the microbial life that's in the soil. So just simply lift it up, place your brick. It'll allow some nice airflow underneath. And as you plant your vegetables and they sprout, you can also use little vases as cloches on cold nights to help protect your vegetables from a possible last-minute frost or cold temperatures. And by creating these little mini spring warm zones, it can help me get started planting about 2 to 3 weeks earlier and give me a jump start on those harvests too. Tip number 3 that I like to do in my garden now in December to give me a jump ahead in spring is to protect my perennials and the plants that I do have from cold and from pests. Now you might have some perennials in your garden like blackberries, strawberries, raspberries, or even some of those perennial herbs, the hardier or the woodier herbs like the rosemary, sage, thyme, and lavender. And especially for you northern and mid-zone gardeners, if you put a heavy layer of mulch around the base of your plants now in December when it's really cold outside, you'll protect the roots of those plants and you'll have much less likelihood of losing those plants over the winter wintertime, and then they'll start producing again early in the spring and put out brand new growth. So a couple inches of shredded leaves or shredded straw goes a long way to protecting those perennials over the wintertime. And if you're not getting rain or snow, don't let your perennials dry out. Give them a nice little light watering so the roots don't dry out and die. Now, I also like to protect the plants that I do have from overwintering pests. Even though pests are much less prevalent in the wintertime, they still do come and get on my plants, especially my brassicas. So here on my broccoli, unfortunately, I've got some aphids. Now, if I don't get these little aphids under control, they're going to quickly spread throughout my plant, and I won't have any broccoli. So you southern gardeners that are still growing, still do your daily pest checks or your weekly pest checks. It's super important. Now, what I'm going to use to spray these is Monterey's Takedown. Now, Monterey and I work together, and I've used their products for a couple of years, and they are the best that I've ever had because they actually work. So I've got some concentrate here in my spray bottle, and what I love about Takedown is not only is it organic, it's made from the chrysanthemum flower, but it kills these pests on contact. So I'm going to spray them directly. They will immediately die, and then I can just rinse them off my plant. And then keep an eye in case we have any last little lingers. And if I do, I can spray it again in about another week. Now, it's super important that you use the right product for the right insects. That's a mistake a lot of gardeners make. Takedown is for sucking insects. It also kills eggs and larvae. So even you northern gardeners that may not be growing right now, you can actually spray the soil, especially around your overwintering perennials that you may have pruned back, around the base of like your blackberries and strawberry plants, to kill any eggs or larvae that might be in the soil, and that way they don't pop up in the spring. And again, it puts you a couple of weeks ahead. So Takedown is for the sucking insects, but if you've got holes in your plants, like I do right here on the broccoli plant behind the first one, that's a whole entirely different animal. These are cabbage looper holes, most likely. And for that, I'm not going to use Takedown. I won't work on those. I'm going to use the garden insect spray. It has spinosad. And what garden insect spray does is it actually penetrates the leaf, the top layer of the leaf, so that when the cabbage loopers chew on the leaf, they ingest the garden insect spray and they die. So you've got to use the right product for the right insect that you have to help control your pests in the wintertime, and then keep these on hand when you first plant in the spring, and that way your plants will take off and you won't have huge pest control issues. Tip number 4 is to plan your watering layout now. Now, the reason why this is such an advantage to do now in December is because in the spring, watering can be such a bottleneck for many gardeners, myself included. And if I'm not thinking about where I want to water more efficiently in the spring, when it comes time for spring planting, I'm going to have to rush to get my watering installed, and then my planting will be delayed. First off, if you've already winterized your Mr. Landscaping system by bringing in your timer, installing your winter plug, mark on your calendar when your last frost date is, and that's when you're going to reinstall your timer, remove the winter plug, and start up your spring irrigation system again. Of course, always keep an eye on the weather in case you have those last frosts that don't line up with your last frost date. If you haven't winterized yet, go back and watch that video, because it's very important that you bring your timer inside so that you don't damage the components that are going on in the timer in the wintertime. The second thing that I like to do is kind of figure out my watering plan if I don't already have drip installed in that area. So I like to figure out, am I going to install micro sprayers, which I like to do because it's super quick and easy to install, and you just plug and play, turn them on, and it can water a whole entire area at once and literally takes minutes to install. So if you're watering by hand, consider installing some Mr. Landscaper micro sprayers or drip irrigation to really maximize the efficiency of your watering and avoid all those trips back and forth to the hose with your watering can. Now, we're planning on building a whole new raised bed in this area right here. And by the way, it's a good time to do that too in the wintertime when you don't have as many plants growing. So because we're going to be building a new raised bed, I want to make sure I'm close to a water source so I can run my drip irrigation from my water source, which I have a water source running right back here, into my garden bed. Because if you do this after you plant your vegetables in the spring, your vegetables are not going to take off. They're not going to do as well. If you've got the watering installed right away, you're going to save yourself the headaches. Your vegetables will take off quicker, and you're going to have harvest that much sooner. And we have videos on how to set up drip irrigation both in raised beds and containers that you'll definitely want to spend the time this month in December watching, so you're all ready for spring planting. planting. So do a few of these tips this month and you're going to set yourself up for the best spring garden yet. It's crazy to think 2025 is coming to a close and we're jumping into 2026 with a brand new raised bed build. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing. I'll be reading your comments and we'll see you next time in the garden.